Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Hey, we are back with the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. This is episode 99. We're based on the precipice of hitting the big 100. Our next episode, which is going to have 5 people on it, is going to be the super secret crazy thing. I'm super excited, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself. Let me introduce myself, Charlie Carden, Trek Lord of West Michigan, fleet captain of the USS Grand Petoskey here in West Michigan. I am joined, as always, by my awesome co-host, the one-of-a-kind Kay Quinn. How the heck are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am also doing well. And Peter, whose transporter broke today, Stein. Peter, how are you?
Doing all right.
Good deal. We are joined by a returning special guest who reached out to me and said, PICARD, series finale, I've got thoughts. And I said, come on down. We're talking about the young lady that I have dubbed the Chicago Trekker. That would be Jen Watson. Jen, hello.
Hi. Hello. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Good to see you. Good to hear you. Well, before we jump into the meat, we got a big show this week. So I'm usually a stickler for time. I like to keep things tight, but we have 2 news stories. We have the end of a series, plus talking about the series as a wrap up. And then we're going to say goodbye to Peter and jump back into talking about another segment of Star Trek Voyager. But first and foremost, as I said, we do have news, but I never get anywhere without thanking our awesome top tier Patreons, really all of our Patreons. But I want to give some a special love to the Nias family, Sean, Stella, and Henry, your friend and my friend, Missy Merchant, and Andy Milliken at our BFFs level. We love you guys. And at the Best Buds level, our friend Jamie Prinky. So thank you for supporting us. You make creating the additional content that we get to do possible, and we are grateful. So thank you. Okay, without further ado, let's jump into the news. We've got 2 stories, which we don't often have one, but now we have 2. First off, we have a Trek First, a TV movie announced, I think is something that's been talked about for a long time. And I mean, you guys tell me if you think this had anything to do with the star of this film, maybe winning a little industry award that some people consider to be somewhat of note. Peter, what's the story?
So basically the story is that the character Philippa Georgiou will return in a Section 31 TV show movie.
Nice. Show movie. Yes.
My brain went one way and my mouth went another way, and so you got both. You're welcome.
That is okay. This is pretty cool. Lynn, as I said, this has been in development. You see my air quotes if you're watching us on YouTube for a very long time. And we talked about this over on SFU Prime some time back, but of course that show's weekly. We're bi-weekly, so we're a little slower on the uptake, but hopefully we give a little deeper dive in things related to Star Trek. So what do you guys think about this? I mean, Kay, you're a huge Discovery fan. Jen, I'm not remembering where you land with Discovery, but what do you guys think about this?
I honestly think doing a movie was probably a wise choice, just because Yo's schedule can get kind of crazy, but also I don't know if there's a lot of content to be able to fit in between Georgiou's story where we didn't see her, because we obviously know where Georgiou ends up. And we know where her story ends. So I think that trying to do like 6 seasons in a movie of what was happening between like season 3 and 4 of Discovery, or 2 and 3, would have been really difficult to do.
Well, yeah, they left her in a flash where, remember, it was the Guardian of Forever. They brought back Carl, who was actually the Guardian of Forever, and she's like, I'm phasing out of whatever. And because she was, they gave a very Star Trek, Doctor Who, timey-wimey kind of, well, I'm from one universe and I can be in
another universe, and
you jump forward in time. Yeah,
that was okay. You can't do that, and your molecules are shifting.
Right. That's a
You
bridge
get
too
one
far.
or the other, but not both.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
So
Yeah.
then they kind of chucked her into the Guardian Forever, and she was just gone. And that was in season 3 of Discovery. So it's kind of history. So then we get this. So she goes somewhere. So it's going to have to be, I mean, if it's one, not the other, she's gone back to the 23rd century, or is she gone back to the mirror universe? I'm thinking that she's gone back to 23rd century because
23rd century, because they already established her as having worked with Section 31 kind of in Discovery in season 2.
There also is a Section 31 in the mirror universe, so that would be kind of
that'd also be difficult.
Very good point. Yeah, so that really draws it back.
The entire empire is basically Section 31.
Yeah, that is very correct. So this is pretty great. So this is pretty high profile with Michelle Yeoh, obviously being an actor of note long before she won the Academy Award for the, I'm going to get the name of the movie wrong,
Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Touche. Thank you very much.
Before you can. I only saw that recently and I loved it.
Yes.
And I think that the award is very much deserved. I mean, she was amazing in everything I've seen her in.
Right.
I'm happy that it's a movie. I think that the track record recently for these like 10 episode series with a through line like this, I mean, maybe it would do better if it was condensed into a movie, if it's 2 hours, 2.5 hours or so. I mean, if you're going with a longer movie, this Marvel movie sort of runtime, I think you can maybe tell a tighter story with that. And if you want to do another spin-off of the movie, if there's anything to do with some of the other Section 31 agents or Section 31 in different time periods, you could do something with that if you wanted to do more. But as is, I think it's a good way to tie up the loose ends that we had from Discovery, because we did just kind of leave her hanging. It's like, we know where she goes, but we want to see some of that story. At least I wanted to see some of that story because we knew there was a talk of the Section 31 show, but it was still like up in the air.
Right.
So it would be good to give it a conclusion, and with her schedule, I'm assuming it's her schedule.
Yeah.
And
I would
maybe
think so.
That pay grade that she's at right now after winning the Oscar.
Yeah, that's where they put that money back into. Yeah. I think it also sets a great precedent for projects like this coming forward. And this is what I said when we were talking about it over on SFU Prime. So, we get this here, but now this maybe also means we get a telefilm about, let's get the gang back together, or the Voyager gang, or the DS9 gang. Probably less Avery Brooks if I was willing to have a guess. But like little special projects. Yeah, more Enterprise, exactly. So, but we will get into talking about that. What did you say, Peter?
I said maybe we'll get the Romulan War finally.
Oh man! Oh my God! Yes, the Enterprise gang. Yeah, that was always the longest talk. Like, let's bring those back together. But where the Voyager gang, like they're all somewhat still visible. The Enterprise people, they seem to be very fractured as far as do they still interact with each other. So I don't know.
But just as saying, it's another show that just kind of stopped. I mean, they got kind of a wrap up, but there's more story to tell because they wanted to tell more story, and
right. This could be the chance. So, and I love Scott Bakula. If you've been listening to if you're one of our patrons and listening to our The Facts Geek Life, which is my show over there, we've been doing Quantum Leap. Misty Merchant and I have been doing it, and just absolutely love that show. It's awesome. So, okay, story number 2. We've all been waiting kind of with bated breath, and we're all Strange New Worlds cosplayers, and a few of us are doing a photo shoot here in a couple of weeks, another photo shoot because we did one last fall that Jen and Scott were a part of. But yeah, Strange New Worlds, we're getting season 2 on June 15. Kay, tell us all about it. Tell us what you thought about this trailer. Oh, and you muted, dear.
Sorry, I have 2 very rambunctious chihuahuas, so I keep having to mute myself.
Appreciated.
I loved everything except for the song that they picked.
Oh God, jog my memory. What was the song?
It was a rehash
by the Postal Service.
Yes, and that was my wedding song, so it was very weird to see it being rehashed into this. I was like, this feels weird to me. I don't like this version of it. That was more of a personal pick.
What was the song again?
Such Great Heights.
Such Great Heights, which I'm not familiar with. Who did that song originally?
Now I'm blinking.
Oh,
The
I
Postal
should
Service.
know it.
oh, gotcha.
Postal Service was a band.
Yeah, Postal Service.
Yeah.
Everybody
Um,
knows it but me. I of course picked I think my wedding song was the song by Dan Fogelberg because I love soft rock. But so I'm bad. I'm bad like that. Now I'm going to have to go back and play a little stricter attention. All right, so moving beyond that,
yes, but
what did
everything else
think
about
what you
it
saw? Yeah.
was just fantastic. It seemed like it was just more a season 1, which also was fantastic. So I didn't see anything in it. Everybody, all the characters, you had your fun, quippy lines, you had your, obviously high stakes, and it just looked like it was gonna be fantastic overall.
Right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I love the inclusion of we're getting Kirk back. And Peter, you'll appreciate this because you're a continuity, nut like I am. Kirk, when in the menagerie back in TOS, when they meet Captain Pike in the chair where he beeps yes or no, he says, someone asked him, the Commodore Mendez, the other guy there, asked him, hey, have you ever met Christopher Pike? And Kirk says, I met him briefly when he was promoted to fleet captain. Spock knows him. And the scene that it feels like that they show here is going to be a contained performance with just Paul Wesley as Kirk, and then Christina Chong as Lan Sung. And they look like they're in the past somewhere because it's funny they show them going into like a department store or different stuff and quipping about I'm from space, which was the funny line they quipped from Star Trek 4. So hopefully that means that maybe they're trying to adhere to that kind of continuity. That would be cool. It wouldn't be the end of the world if they didn't, but I don't know. And the other big thing I loved, Spock, and this is what Oxford and I talked about, what I consider normal looking Klingons, per kind of what we got in Discovery, which was like, whoa, that's a different stripe, without a doubt. So anyway, Peter, your thoughts?
I for sure appreciated that the Klingons looked like Klingons again.
Yeah.
So, and like the costuming and the makeup is like the costuming is actually in between Discovery and motion picture Klingons.
Okay, gotcha. Kind of glossing over the TOS Klingons yet again.
I noticed these sorts of things, but I'm happy that like the foreheads are back and they normalized the faces again.
They fixed the hair.
So I myself am not super stoked about Kirk coming in, just because Kirk can be written correctly, and then Kirk can be written like Zap Brannigan, and I'm a little bit worried.
Yes,
because that is how Kirk is seen in the current zeitgeist, and so I just I'm a little concerned with that. It could be great, but that's just I don't know.
Yeah, no,
it's
you're
also
right.
Like it's Pike's show. We don't need to bring Kirk in. Let Kirk do his thing on the Republic and whatever.
Right. Well, hopefully it'll be a one-off because I wouldn't necessarily want to see it necessarily any other way. So, Jen, how about you?
I think it looks great. I'm excited. It looks like like you were saying, more of the same from season 1. It's one of those like if it ain't broke, don't fix. Or don't fix what ain't broke.
True.
They've been saying that Ortegas is going to have her episode, her character spotlight episode, which I'm excited for because she did not have one in season 1.
Right.
Kirk, I can kind of like, okay, if he's there, cool. If he's not there, that's fine too.
Take her to leave.
I can take her or leave him. It really does depend. Like Peter said, it comes down to the writing. I mean, I was here for the JJ movies episode, and I'm like, that wasn't Kirk. That's not the Kirk I know from Prime Timeline. This is Prime Timeline. So we'll see. I still kind of see Stefan Salvatore though, because I watched Vampire Diaries and I'm like, this is an interesting casting choice, but like we didn't really see enough of him in season 1 for me to really get a handle on like his Kirk. Yeah. So if we see him,
like how you were doing the gesturing when you said that.
Yeah, it's Kirk. It's
Spock.
I can't help
do you mean?
The Klingons look good. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I wasn't upset at the Discovery Klingons either, though. I was like, okay, they're going in a different direction with this. Let's see how this goes. I'm really here for the stories. I mean, as much as I am a cosplayer and I'm appreciative of costumes and makeup, and I still think that the Strange New Worlds costumes are amazing.
Yeah, totally.
I'm excited for the stories because the stories in season 1 were great, and I'm hoping we're going to get some more great stories in season 2 too. So
Agreed.
more character action. I'm happy that they still kind of showed number 1 in there. I mean, even though we left her on a cliffhanger, like obviously she's going to be back. No reason to, mince that at all. We know she's going to be there. We don't know how. Maybe that'll be the story in episode 1. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I get the feeling that'll be a wrap up, because what else, what else are they going to do under the main character? So excellent. Okay, any final thoughts before we move on to again, I always like to call this segment half because we rarely have news to talk about, but before we jump into segment 1, any final thoughts? We good? Are we excited about stuff?
I like how I'm from space was subverted,
Exactly.
I'm not from space, I just worked there.
By that, but
yes, it was. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
I understand. Yeah. Well, cool. All right, let's jump right into the meat of it. We are at the end of the road for Star Trek Picard as a series. We're going to be talking about episode 10, The Last Generation. Who wants to do the honors? I'm going to let Jen do the honors. Our guest can do the honors of reading the recap. And again, you don't have to read the entire thing, but the notes here to summarize. So, Jen, the honor is yours.
Let's see. Picard Season 3, Episode 10, The Last Generation. Federation President Anton Chekhov issues a planetary distress signal. Picard and the crew of the Enterprise find a Borg ship hiding in the clouds of Jupiter. Seven liberates the Titan from the assimilated crew and engages the fleet. Worf and Riker infiltrate the Borg ship while Picard plugs into the hive mind to rescue Jack from the Borg Queen's influence. The compromised fleet destroys space dock and Earth's planetary shields and begin targeting major cities. The Enterprise locates the beacon controlling the assimilated crew members and destroys it. Picard succeeds in freeing Jack from the Queen, after which they escape as the cube explodes. With the Borg destroyed once and for all assimilated Starfleet personnel return to normal, and the Enterprise is returned to the Fleet Museum. A year later, the crew reminisce over drinks and a game of cards. Seven is promoted to captain of the Titan, which is rechristened the USS Enterprise G, with Raffi as her first officer and Jack as liaison to the captain. Then Jack receives a visit from Q, telling him that while Picard's trial has ended, his has just begun.
That was actually a nice little summary. It really didn't drag ass too much. I was impressed for an episode where so much happened. So, Peter, I know that you had some reservations. I think we're going to go low high. So I'm going to let you start, and then we'll jump into the rest of us. So, Peter, give us your thoughts, please.
I had mixed feelings about this episode. I know that I'm going to be the outlier here, but
that's okay.
For me, all the character interactions were great. I'm going to say that out front. That was amazing. But for me, the bringing the way that they brought back the Borg didn't work for me. Particularly the Queen herself. There was a lot of stuff there that didn't make sense for me, with changing the Borg's priorities or having her cannibalize drones, which, continuity speaking, is not a necessary thing in any way. Through Voyager, TNG, it's just not a thing.
That's kind of true. I get that.
So I get that they were going for horror and they were going for broken, but when your thing from season 2 is the Borg are lonely, and then your thing from season 3 is the Borg are angry and lonely.
So wait a second. So the Borg need a sandwich? Oh, name of the episode. The Borg need a sandwich.
So that just really, the Borg just really didn't work for me. And yeah. But other than that, a lot of it was great. The Death Star run was a little weird for me. Because the Enterprise D is a boat.
Yes.
But
that component of it I can agree with. Because
I get it. It was cool, but Yeah,
but watching it be so
boat.
nubile is a little different because you think of like that's something the Voyager could pull off or the Defiant could pull off, but the Enterprise is that's a suburban versus like a Geo.
Yeah, there's a big difference in maneuverability there. Data's grin was great, like that whole thing was great, but
he was digging it. Yeah.
So yeah, like overall it was fine. I wasn't entirely sure what I felt about rechristening the Titan since it was an A already.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a little odd. It was an odd choice. Like making another Enterprise, totally fine with that. Seven being the captain, totally fine with that. It was just an odd choice to make the Titan.
They had a guy out there with the whitewash. Oh, I got to do this again. That's got to be the worst job. Hopefully they get drones to do that. Kind of. Then again, that's how we end up with Cylons. Make them do all the crappy jobs, and all of a sudden they kill all humans. Oh man.
Yeah. So.
Well, cool. All right. Okay. Kay, if you're in between yelps, I would love to hear your thoughts. Let's get Kay's perspective. Take it away.
So as a season, I think this was very interesting, and I think it did well on its own. Cohesively as a series, I think it kind of falls apart. So just because it seemed like they were trying to do a through line of like humanity and synthetic life and like the continuation of life, and it just never seemed like they knew how to wrap up that story nicely. But overall, I thought that they did well with this season. I think this was maybe the most successful season out of the three. I very much enjoyed seeing the entire crew back together and seeing them kind of do one final hurrah. I still don't know if I love that everybody lived, because they were so like gung-ho about like, oh, no one's safe.
Yeah, they absolutely did do that. I will say I was surprised and happy that everybody lived, but I was surprised.
Yeah,
because I still thought
it felt like a real kind of fake out, and I honestly thought that it would have been a really beautiful moment for Jack not to have unplugged, and it had just been Picard and him kind of embracing, and Picard being like, "That's okay, I'm not going to leave. Like, this is where we'll make our last stand then, if that's what's going to happen." And I was honestly, if I was Troy, I would have divorced Riker's ass after that. I've been like, 2 times I tried to save you, and 2 times you chose Picard over me and over your family. I don't think I'd be okay with that.
She's either a very understanding woman or it's some kind of PTSD. I have no idea.
Yeah. So, but I think overall, like, I did really enjoy, and I thought the poker game at the end and kind of the conclusion of that and seeing all of them together at the end was very, very nice. Worf's, swords are fun. Maybe my favorite line out of the entire series. and I was really, really excited to see Q come back. If that's our kind of jump to the next series, would be us being able to have Raffi, Seven and Jack having to deal with Q escapades and like kind of a new TNG launch. I'd be super thrilled with that.
Right. That I absolutely agree with. But again, we'll dig a little deeper into what comes next here shortly. But because the way Q got done dirty in season 2 was no bueno. So Jen, take us home. Well, again, I'll jump in after you, but I'd like to have all you guys go first because then I don't have to do that much work because then it all gets said. Take it away.
Okay, so
Careful thought.
I know. I did overall enjoy this. I did have some issues too. I think that the Borg being like a mother, the Borg Queen's insistence that she's a mother, and that being the contrast or the foil to Beverly being the mother, and her like Beverly's ready to give him up. I mean, she's resigned at that point to that, like, we push this button, now we lose everyone on the cube, and they show everyone's faces too on the D where they're like, all right, if this is it, the needs of the many and the needs of the few again, it comes back to that. And that contrast there, I feel like we got a lot of, mother stuff. I was excited to see Beverly in action, and she still kind of got pushed to this mother role that she always had. I mean, we did see her in action and earlier in the season, and she did have, you know, the weapons control, and it was cool to be like, oh yeah, everything, you know, the past 20 years, there's been a lot. Did she talk to everyone? I mean, if she did, it was off screen.
Mm-hmm.
They did bring in that assimilation is euphoria from season 2 because
Mm-hmm.
that was something that was not established prior. I was a little bit like, okay, you can save someone from assimilation with the power of love and power of family.
Oh, Huey
Which
Lewis would have been so proud. The power of love delivers.
the
Very
thing is,
Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh
and
God.
that's
Oh,
but that's
do
pulled
not
from
invoke that.
That's pulled from Prodigy too, because that happened in Prodigy with Zero.
Right.
So, like,
Hidden
you've
wrinkle,
got
I guess.
you've
I mean,
got this
it worked in
established.
Prodigy because she was Zero was
Not
non-corporeal.
not corporeal. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So like Zero could not necessarily be assimilated, but it's still like that push and pull of loneliness versus family, the idea of your found family in Starfleet versus your blood family, and is the Borg Queen kind of a biological mother to Jack because the DNA stuff that happened?
Like a kooky ant, more like it. You know what I mean?
I will say this: I thought she looked amazing. Like the effects and makeup and costuming on that was
Right.
so creepy.
And
Like
it was Alice Kriega's voice. Alice
her
Kriega being
voice, it was a
the Borg
body
Queen, yeah.
double.
But the
Mhm.
woman, and she had a name that was someone. Oh God, I'm gonna have to click on the link. She had the name of someone famous, but it wasn't that person. Give me just a minute.
Okay.
Here. You keep talking, and I'll look it up.
All right.
I'm curious now.
I did notice that the way that the Borg Queen's face was sort of melted and distorted was similar to the floating head that Vatic was talking to. So it's like, okay, would have liked to have that be explicit rather than implicit that, yeah, the changelings were talking to the Borg. I mean, they did say the changelings were talking to the Borg, but I felt sometimes like, who was the floating head? What was that? What was going on? You know? So, I mean, I noticed that it was the same shape, but I noticed that on my second watch. I didn't notice that the first time through. I love that Data gets his wish after all of this time. Data gets to be human and figure out what that all actually means for real.
Much to Troy's exhaustion.
Yeah. Like, I'm going on a beach vacation.
I've got the name.
Yeah.
As Borg Queen body double, Jane Edwina Seymour. That is right. Dr. Quinn, yeah. Borg
Seymour.
Woman. That could be another title, but I like to the Borg Need a Sandwich better. Peter kind of set me up for that one, so I don't think I can let it go.
But overall, this season, yes, good. It was rough and choppy in parts. And I mean, not everyone survived. We lost Ro.
Mm-hmm.
We lost Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually upset at that, which is interesting because I remember being on the show when we talked about on Secret Friends, we were talking about the trailer for Picard, and we're like, yeah, Shaw's going to get tossed out in airlock in the first episode or two, and it's like,
we came to love him.
We came to love him. Like, he's a dipshit from Chicago, but he's our dipshit from Chicago.
No, and that's got to, being a Chicagoite yourself, that's got to touch you. Yeah.
Like, this is cool. Yeah. But like, and if I can, I know that I'm talking a lot here, but
please talk a lot. That's okay.
One of the things that I really liked about Shaw and his character is that in that episode where he's in the bar talking about his trauma and his experiences at Wolf 359, and that's the moment where it flipped for me. He was introduced as someone that we were kind of not supposed to like because he was like, no, and he was against the guys that we had come to love and care for. Like, it's Picard and Riker. We know them. We love them. We know what their intentions are. We know that they're trying to save the universe. And Shaw's out here going like, no, you cannot do this with my ship. You can't do this with my crew. He's trying to protect his crew. Right. We learn that that's because of his trauma. We learn about like why he's dead naming Seven. We learn why he's so against the Borg, and keeps referring to Picard as an ex-Borg and seeing him in that light. It's because of Wolf 359.
Right.
What that scene did is it took the other and it made it someone that we care about. And that's what I think the best Trek does. And in this day and age where the other is another human with a different point of view from yours, and it's not someone who's an alien necessarily, this is the kind of character that I think we really needed, because we need to see other humans with different points of view from ours and understand them, empathize with them, and see that they may have places that they're coming from that are explanations, not excuses, but explanations for their opinions, and why we can see where they're coming from and come to understand them and come to, yes, even love them in their own way. Because Shaw never renounced his feelings. He still had his trauma all the way up to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he did call her 7 of 9 at the end. But that was the beginning of his redemption. And I really would have loved to see him carry that through into a next series, or, he's got growing to do. I don't think he's redeemed from the behaviors that he had, but, I feel like we can understand him. I think he was such an important character to have. I am actually sad to see him go.
He really pulled off the Tasha Yar hollow recording. Like, I'm going to say something like, well, I knew I was going to die, so here's this handy dandy, and even though Seven's a real pain in the ass, I think she should be captain. I love it. So, oh my goodness. Well, it's funny because we've really weaved in talking about this episode with how I wanted to wrap this up, which was to look at the series as a whole. My final thoughts were, and I punctuated here and there a little bit, was that I was very satisfied, but with probably in line with what Peter said. There are a lot of things about this that were kind of super convenient, like, oh, now Jack was on a super accelerated track, so he's an ensign after 1 year. They just decided to slap a new name on the Titan, and now it's the Enterprise G. Well, that's kind of cool, but it's also kind of like, what?
I think they just didn't want to build another set.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly why they did it.
You're like, you know what, we can afford, or the Starfleet would be like, you know what, after losing, because think about how many people they lost. So it's like there were a lot of promotions. That's probably why Jack got promoted so fast, because they didn't have, all they had were ensigns. So now all the ensigns are lieutenants, all the lieutenants are lieutenant commanders, and all the lieutenant commanders and commanders are now ship captains because they were all out of people. So yeah, Starfleet went through a serious reduction in about 20 minutes that they needed to really quickly promote some people, which is cool. I just did a bunch of promotions within the chapter this morning. A bunch of people had their time and grade got promoted, mostly enlisted people. But yeah, if they killed off all of our senior officers, all these people would be running the ship. So it's kind of the same deal. So there was a lot of kind of convenience for convenience sake. But, the end bit with the crew and the bar, it was kind of annoying how they kept referring to Guinan. Oh, Guinan's been giving us the stink eye for 20 minutes. She's right over there. That was a little like, we're just not going to get Whoopi in here and pay her for, to even just go and give him the stink eye, then we're going to pay for that. But the echoing, the camera pull out from above and echoing the end of All Good Things was terrific. And so it was kind of the wish fulfillment hour, which I don't have a problem with, but it's also kind of like, is it really, as you said, the lasting, like Kay was saying, the lasting storytelling where maybe there would have been some great impact if, Picard and Son went down in a blaze of glory. Maybe yes and maybe no. But at the end of the day, I was still pretty happy. But I 100% could have seen it both ways. So, what hasn't been said on this show and just in the zeitgeist in general about this series being kind of okay in season 1, total train wreck in season 2, super duper, at least in my opinion, redemption in season 3. I mean, I don't know what else we could add to that unless one of the two of you wants to jump in with a contrary opinion. That is my Reader's Digest elevator speech for how I see this series. But Any further thoughts around kind of the journey we've taken since this show's been on the air? Anybody?
I think one of the things that we've been seeing with this show is the people in charge slowly realizing that you need to, accept older Star Trek to be able to make the newer Star Trek, which I think is a good thing for them. In the sense that, and I don't mean this in a mean way, but like, you can't just like take like Enterprise and past and just be like, well, we're doing something new now.
Right.
And so like the fact that they were able
with
to
bathwater.
Yeah. So the fact that they were able to like starting in Picard season 1, where you're like, oh yeah, you remember all this? We're going to shove it in a locker and now we're going to do our own thing and we're going to make you mad. And then season 2, where it was like, oh, we're going to sneak it out of the locker for a second. Hey, you remember these more things? And now we're going to shove it in the locker and go into the present. And then we're going to throw it into a dumpster.
And set it on fire.
And bomb it. And then by the time you get to season 3, they're finally like, you know what? Maybe the stuff that's in that locker is actually worth something.
Right.
And so people it back.
And people like it for a reason. Right.
And like there's a reason why TNG sticks around and people love it so much. And so you bring some more of that back in and you're like, hey, maybe some of this isn't bad to use. Like, don't use it ad nauseum. Like, I think there's a few things that they did this season particularly that were a little like, okay, like I get why you brought it back because everyone loves it, but it doesn't make sense. But like the fact that they were able to bring some of that stuff back and do it in a not terribly forced way was, I think, growth on that end. And I hope that we see that going forward. And so I think that's something that the Picard show at least has learned, and hopefully everybody in charge has also learned that the older stuff does, like, it has value, and so you can use it.
Right.
Yeah, which is what earlier on, in season 1, when they were doing all these interviews, I remember that, Patrick Stewart was saying like, this is not Next Gen Part 2. This is going to be a totally new thing. It's going to be a totally new story for the times that we're in now. And I'm still not quite sure what he meant by that, but
maybe that just doesn't exist with heritage characters, which is, I know both Kay and Peter, we had some quibbles, particularly early in season 3, like, well, that's just not what Riker would do. That's just not what.
Oh my God. Yeah. I was listening to the show and I'm listening to the show in my car and I'm like, it's because Riker's a changeling. That's why he's acting so weird. And
it's such a great catch-all. Everybody's a changeling.
Yeah. Because it's like, oh, Deanna won't mind if I'm like, Deanna would mind. Have you seen Nepenthe? Have you seen the first season where everything was good? He's got to be a changeling. And then he wasn't. And I'm like,
yeah.
What's up with Riker? I don't know. But like,
yeah, that was that entire relationship. I was like the entire low point for me, because I was like, they have like, did the people who were responsible for writing these characters watch any of TNG at all?
Yeah, it kind of takes you right back to Nemesis, and the fact that the director didn't know the characters, and his script notes were like, in Geordi's an alien, and he took Worf's voice and lowered it an octave, and just did a bunch of weird shit that just didn't click in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. So yeah, but I would say for sure, to Peter's point, not every show, and again, most shows get canceled if people don't watch them. But then again, we live in this weird age where you don't really know how a show is a success or not a success until Netflix just cancels it. Like, oh, well, not enough people are watching blah, 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 so it's canceled. Or, Swamp Thing over on...
Like, oh, man, I liked that.
Yeah, or, Swamp Thing over on, HBO Max. Like, well, we canceled it and all the episodes haven't aired yet, but it's not popular enough. So, this is Star Trek, and so there's a built-in audience. But to Peter's point, it's tough to really sustain something when all you're saying is that, I like shoving things in a locker. That's a great analogy, but just like, but I really want this hoodie. Maybe I'll take this hoodie and this pair of track pants, but I'll put the track pants out and I really want this pair of shoes. You know what I mean? And so it's locker shopping for Star Trek. But yeah, it took them all this time to learn. And obviously maybe they're really listening to the fans saying, hey, season 2 was god awful. You threw spaghetti against the wall. You wanted to see what stuck and nothing really did. And so they came back and they, in a lot of ways, ignored the rest of the series, which is all well and good. I mean, poor Laris, we don't know what happened to her. What happened to that relationship?
Laris.
Yeah,
I
I
hope
know.
that she's even one throwaway line of like, yeah, Laris is at the vineyard or Laris is doing something. Like you didn't have to bring her back for the last episode, but you could have said something.
Yeah, this is true.
Mhm.
That was kind of an ouchie over. But yeah, she was just set dressing for the first like 8 minutes of episode 1 here in season 3. So, the series overall, would I call it a success? The meatloaf song doesn't go 1 out of 3 ain't bad. It's 2 out of 3 ain't bad, and we're more like 1 point. I'm gonna go like maybe 2.5 or 1.5 as far as what's good, because I liked parts of season 1, but maybe a lot of that was just like, hey, it's great to see them back and they're doing stuff and blah blah blah, and it's Starfleet and look, new ships and new uniforms and blah blah blah. And then season 2 was just a complete loss. I mean, even when I did our bracket challenge, the 5 episodes of PICARD are all from this season, because I was like, maybe Nepenthe was okay. Nope, these episodes are all better. But that was my take. But so what's next for Star Trek in the 25th century? I mean, they obviously, if this is a game of T-ball, T-ball is the, Seven and Raffi and Jack and Q.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But, I'm reading articles that are saying, well, that would be really expensive because they're going to want to film it in Canada, and then they got to get people up there and they got to do this thing. So I read this article that was really grinding down on the logistics, but they still
popular enough, they'll make it work.
Yeah, I mean, they're still they're filming Strange New Worlds in Toronto, and they filmed Discovery in Toronto, and actors move around, and they can move all the sets with it. So yeah, I find that argument to be somewhat specious, but we're now approaching, believe it or not, the middle of 2023. They're making this movie, they're making the Starfleet Academy thing, which is going to be a continuation of Discovery. So I would see anything related to 25th century Star Trek, where they call it Star Trek Legacy, which would be spectacular, is not being something that we're going to see in the flesh until 2025 or even 2026. So I think we're looking 2 to 3 year window after they announce something, you know what I mean? Because then they have to produce it. And if you think about how long it was in between when we finally, it was 2 years from when we met Captain Pike and that Enterprise, and then season 2 of Discovery ended. That was in 2019, and then it was in 2022 that we got the show. So that's 3 years, plus you throw COVID in there, whatever. So
2 years is reasonable, I think, and I'd be willing to wait 2 years for this show. But I mean, I really like 7 of 9, clearly.
Kind of, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah. And her whole arc, though, like just from, I mean, sorry, just to jump in.
Please, by all means. She has one of the best arcs. I think her and Worf probably have 2 of the best arcs, and Spock have, the best arcs in all of Star Trek that we've seen them from one end to the other.
Worf's the character that's been in the most episodes of Star Trek.
Hands down. Yeah.
And I like that they didn't seem to ignore his presence on Deep Space Nine either. I mean, he referenced Odo, even if he didn't call him by name.
Mm-hmm.
He's the link to, I mean, no pun intended, but he's the link to the Dominion War and that went on there. So like they didn't discount that like they did in Nemesis, but Nemesis did everything wrong anyway. So that's beside the point.
It's kind of a great fuzz. It's like the end of Enterprise. It's the what was the hell's the last name? These are the voyages. Doesn't exist. It's a bad holodeck program.
I don't know that episode. That didn't happen.
Star Wars Holiday Special.
From 7 going to like, no, I am Borg. Put me back in the collective right at the beginning of season 4 of Voyager, all the way through her being like, we're all that's left of Starfleet. And her being like so Starfleet, and like, even though she's unsure and maybe she wants to resign, but like, no, she belongs here. She belongs here. And can we talk about Tuvok being here too? Like,
we didn't even bring it up. It was terrific.
Like it was so good to see just anyone else in here. I would love to see if they do Legacy, which I mean, the fan response for this is so huge.
I mean, it got me to go out and sign one of those stupid petitions, which I don't do that. I'm like, this is the most worthless junk they could
Mhm.
ever have. Nobody cares about these. And I'm like, just in case, maybe I ought to go sign this. And I did. And it's got 20,000 people that are interested in it. And if nothing else, it's like the old letter writing campaigns back in the
Yeah.
60s with the old show, like, please don't cancel Star Trek. And they get 50,000 letters at the Paramount office. You know what I mean? And maybe that means something, maybe it doesn't. So, yeah, that's my vibe. Kate, you've been silent. We haven't shut up, but I haven't forgotten about you. And I know that you're trying to keep the dogs at bay. But yeah, what are you thinking?
I'm just hoping that this is the end of the Borg, honestly. They've been such a big presence for
been
so
done.
long. Yeah, I would really like to see it where it's like, okay, this was kind of just the nail in the cube, so to speak, of
Cube.
Borg are done. And if Borg do become a presence in a legacy 25th century, whatever, you see it from the Girardi perspective of that new collective that she created, and they become more of a presence for good, or at least neutrality, versus them trying to be a conquering force. Now, granted,
not a villain, right?
Yeah, we haven't seen anything about them, in the 32nd century, so obviously whatever presence they had wouldn't have been a lasting presence, so to speak.
Seems that way, yeah. Or it's just another corner to be explored in some other fashion.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I mean, that would be probably my only other takeaway that hasn't been said.
Gotcha. Excellent. Well, holy cow. We've never done a 45-minute segment one and segment half. So I'm enthused about this. This is exactly what I was hoping for. So we're going to wrap it up. We're going to say goodbye to Peter. Peter will be back with us next week for our extra special Super Duper Blowout 100. Peter, where do people find you out there on the intranets?
You can find me floating around the internet at Petrus Aquinas at various places, and you can find me on ELH's channel playing a Vulcan engineer.
Ooh, a Vulcan engineer. I like it. Well, cool. We're going to take a quick pause for station identification, and we'll be right back to talk a little bit more about Voyager Season 3. See you in a second. Okay, back from our little micro break. We're going to do a quick blast through of part 2 of season 3 of Star Trek Voyager. I had mentioned this was right around the time that I kind of disconnected from the series for a little while because I wasn't loving the way that it went. So going back to these stories again, kind of like what I was talking with last week, I mentioned, okay, these were some stories that I wasn't super steeped in, but this first two-parter is one of my absolute favorites. So, Kay, you want to take on the first two parts, those summaries? Go for it.
Yeah, so we had Future End Part 1 and Future End Part 2. Both of them were, the first one was written by Dave Livingston or directed by Dave Livingston and written by Brandon Braga and Joe Menosky. And then Part 2 was directed by Cliff Bole and same writers on there. So you did see some consistency for the writing.
Which is nice, yeah.
Yeah, and a 29th century time ship causes a time paradox when it accidentally sends itself and Voyager to two different periods of the 20th century Earth. And then Janeway must prevent the destruction of the solar system by a 20th century entrepreneur who has acquired said 29th century time ship.
Ooh, the evils of Ed Begley Jr. Oh my God.
Very Elon Musk type.
Oh my, yeah, way before its time, because I don't believe Elon Musk was even a factor in pop culture. But
no,
for
at that point,
5 or 10
not.
years, nobody had really heard of him at all. So, oh my God, I absolutely dug this episode. I don't know about you guys, but this was fun. We had more in the original series than we did really in any other series where they went back to present day. But this one felt much like the old TOS episode Assignment Earth with Gary Seven and Terry Garr, who was an actress from the 60s, if you never watched Laugh-In or whatever, where they made it just seem very topical. Like she spoke like a young person, just like they had a very young Sarah Silverman as the guest star. Rain Robinson talk like a normal 90s kind of person who drove a combi van and was kind of a hippie and liked old B horror movies and stuff. So, but yeah, you got to see our crew in, regular outfits. So Tuvok wearing like a tracksuit and Tom Paris wearing jeans with it. Tom Paris kind of dresses like I do, because that's kind of how I dressed in the 90s, with the jeans tucked in and the shirt with the sleeves rolled up and the tanky underneath. So that's kind of my leitmotif. Tom Paris biting my style. But I dug it, and it was great. Yeah, it was great commentary on the fact that, they really painted Ed Begley Jr. as very much the 20th century, capitalist, super scumbag who just loved money and wanted power. But it just, hey, I've done everything that I can by stealing the ship, and I need more tech. But by going back to the future, so to speak, by doing that, he's going to cause an explosion that's going to destroy Earth's solar system, which is how Voyager gets a visit from the future time police, that's always the show that I've wanted, was, the Star Trek time police, the temporal, investigations people. Total sidebar. I think that would be an amazing show. But this is one of my favorites, and it even made our you'll hear about it again next week when we start talking about what we're talking about next week. But Jen, your thoughts real quick.
It's Voyager's voyage home. It's the one with the whales, only it's the one with the time ship.
Right.
I liked it. It was fun. I liked Rain Robinson a lot. I'm thinking Tom Paris must be in heaven right now because he's a giant nerd about the 20th century.
Right.
I love how he got stuff wrong. Like, oh, it's groovy, and
that's pretty groovy.
We're down the Soviets, and she's like, Tuvok's such a freakosaurus, and it was fun. I felt like Tom and Rain had some chemistry, which was nice. That was cute. I liked that. I like she stayed where she was and didn't come with them. It was fun. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Totally. Gotcha. Kay, did you go first now? I just started blabbing, but
no, that's okay.
Other thoughts?
I really enjoyed Rain. I enjoyed the kind of aliens vibe that they were having of, she's been looking for extraterrestrial life. She accidentally finds Voyager, and there's this whole, back and forth with that, and kind of them trying to do a secret spy type of deal. I didn't really love the whole capitalist genius tech mogul, because when we first see this dude, he's out in the middle of the woods, like
he's just he's a hippie douchebag, yeah.
Right, obviously doing some sort of taking in some sort of substance, and that's when he finds the ship, and then all of a sudden, in 20 years he has become this genius tech mogul. And yes, he did find a ship from the 29th century, but I could be studying a rocket ship for 20 years. That doesn't mean I'm going to understand how it works.
Right.
So the idea that he's able to parse this enough together to be able to create this technology, and in some ways outsmart, someone like not Troy, someone like B'Elanna. There we go.
Right. With the tech, with the transporter,
and the tech and stuff, and it's like I don't know if he would still be that smart, and he would have been able to get to that advanced level by himself in in a matter of 2 decades. So that was the kind of the inconsistency I found, especially because that's where they get the mobile emitter, and they're never able to recreate that mobile emitter. So you have an entire group of engineers on Voyager, and intelligent Starfleet capable people who cannot recreate one piece of 29th technology.
Right.
And we're supposed to believe that he was able to completely tear apart a 29th century time ship.
Right.
That was the only part where I was like, this feels like you jump in the shark a little bit, and you're just supposed to have me suspend reality. But I liked the idea of it overall. I just wish that they would have played with that a little bit better.
I mean, in fairness, they never really dig that deep into Starling's background. For all we know, he could be some brilliant college dropout that, he's dropping acid in the desert by himself, and all of a sudden he's like, whoa. And then he's like, well, I'm also a genius, but I'm also a scumbag. So, but yeah, you're right. It's a very sitcom-y, plot convenient conveyance to accept that kind of stuff. So that I can absolutely agree with. So, but yeah, I dug it. I dug it for that reason. If I can kind of let go of that. So, well, cool. Well, let's move on to, I will say, the rest of it. Episode 10 is Warlord, directed by David Livingston, regular of the series. The story is by Andrew Shepard Price and Mark Gaberman. Not regular staff writers, at least that I'm aware of, but to teleplay by Lisa Klink, and we've been talking about her last couple episodes. This is where she's somebody who's still involved in the franchise. From November of 1996, Kess is controlled by an alien warlord named Tyrion. A Kess episode, a character who clearly feels like she's on their way out. But notable episode because this is when she ends her relationship with Neelix, which Kay has been waiting for so long, because she just one of Star Trek's most toxic relationships, without a doubt. So I just, I don't know. I know that I think I watched the Ed Begley, The Future's End, and then I think I quit it for a couple of months. So I didn't see this one back when it aired, and probably caught it after, either in summertime reruns or years later when we already had 7 of 9 on the show, so you had a more interesting replacement for Kess. So I just didn't really care about, there were kind of no stakes for me in this episode. It's like, keep her, don't keep her, whatever. It sucked that Tuvok was in danger, because I love Tuvok. He's one of my favorite characters. But other than that, I couldn't muster up the fortitude to really care what happened to Kess. I'm sorry. So what about you guys?
I think no stakes is a really good way to put this, because we're following Kess. I can tell that Jen Lian is having a ball with this, though. Like,
sure,
she's actually able to do something different from just being Kess. But like, overall, the episode is like, we're telling a story about a war that we have no stakes in, we don't care about. We're following her, and that we don't really see a lot of our people from Voyager so much. It's just really kind of following her, and it's like,
it's a lot of who cares. Yeah.
I don't mind Cass. I think she's fine, but I think that she would have been better served as a character if she had broken up with Neelix a lot earlier, because it was not a good relationship, and so much of her character is tied up in her relationship to him, and it's like,
yeah.
And Neelix becomes a better character after Kess leaves the show too.
Absolutely.
But he does. He gets a lot more interesting and fun. But like, that's kind of my review. Is
okay, I get the feeling you might be echoing some of what we've talked about.
I think it's a little bit too late. I absolutely adore Kess, and I feel like she's one of those characters where it was just down to poor writing, because her character on paper seems incredibly interesting. Yeah. As far as like, she is this incredibly powerful telepath. She only lives for like 5 to 7 years. She 9 years, came from 9 years, and she comes from this kind of weird commune type of ostracized community, and she's out seeing the stars for the first. Like, it's a really interesting idea,
big time.
But she doesn't ever really get anything to go off of. And Jen, you said the thing that I was thinking the entire time is that Jennifer Lian's just having a ball with this, and it very much came down to, it wasn't her acting chops, it was just the writing chops, where she was never given anything.
Right. Yeah. And it's tough. It was a big cast, 9 characters. And you had several that just weren't interesting. Okay, we talked about last week about Tom Paris and Harry Kim. Even though I love the Delta Flyers podcast, I love listening to Garrett and Robbie give their experiences. But as far as who's interesting on the Voyager cast, those characters are at the bottom. Where we love Chakotay, Tuvok, Janeway, and Seven, and we love the Doctor. But this just Cass with 9 characters to start with, and then they swap her out for Seven, who's a very interesting character, and which we were just talking about. She kind of got lost in the shuffle. So this was, kind of one of her last rattles, as it were. So I don't know. But we move on. Kay, episode 11. It's yours.
Yeah, I've got The Q and the Gray. This one directed by Cliff Bulligan, story by Sean Pillar, and teleplay by Kenneth Biller. So Q visits Voyager with a proposal for Janeway as civil war breaks out in the Q continuum. And this one is just more Q being Q, where he's like, "Hey, Janeway, come have a baby with me because that'll fix everything."
That's funny. In relationships in general, having a baby does not fix. Go
Yeah,
my Morgan Freeman voice.
Yeah.
A baby, in fact, did not fix everything.
exactly.
Just like if you're in a toxic relationship, getting married does not fix everything. It will always make things worse. Trust me.
Yes.
But yeah, I played for laughs. Was the whole thing? I mean, his seduction, and I love it how he's, taking on Chakotay like, oh, I've got some competition. Do you like his tattoo? Mine's bigger. I loving Chakotay. I love that. But Kay, what'd you think in general? Just loved QB and Q.
I mean, yeah, Q's gonna Q. I love Janeway turning him down every step of the way, and her being like, "You are absolutely repugnant." No. So just wonderful in that sense. And I love the ones where they're expanding on the continuum because it's such a, to use a poor turn of phrase, it's such an alien idea for us as far as, these beings that are immortal and kind of ineffable as far as our understanding of them. So the way that we get to interact with them is on a very limited scope. And I think they did a really good job kind of bringing in and like having that Civil War era, because a lot of times they'll do that stuff with like the the holodeck and stuff where you're like, oh, we're going back and doing Shakespeare, or we're doing Robin Hood. But this was a fun way to bring in those kind of sets without it being, oh, this is just a holodeck episode.
Yeah, very true, very true. Jen, how about you?
Yeah, I kind of had the same notes of like, this is a holodeck episode without the holodeck. Janeway's great. Q is great. I liked the lady Q that came in too.
Susan Claxton.
She's fantastic. Loved her throwaway line about like, I always loved Klingon females, like knowing that she's K'Ehleyr also.
Yeah, Worf's baby mama. Exactly.
And I mean, there is a resolution in this, in that like, oh, you have someone that you can mate with, that will work and that will solve the problem if you think this is how you're going to solve the problem. Janeway remains steadfast throughout the whole thing, which, Janeway's going to Janeway and be very like, stick to her morals and stick to her beliefs and still be like, ugh, Q, no.
Right.
I liked it. It's fun. Yeah, Janeway's as persistent as ever. And a note that Q's have mated before, because there was that TNG episode, True Q.
Right.
So, Q being all like, I can only mate with, creatures that
by touching fingers.
mate.
Bing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's just here to harass Janeway. I think if he could have
Okay.
PICARD with PICARD, he would have tried that too. Like,
God.
Yeah.
That would
Probably would have tried that first, let's be real.
Yeah.
He probably
True.
could have figured out a way to pull it off. Agreed. Agreed. It's all been said. I enjoyed Cute. I love seeing Susie Claxton. The Civil War thing was kind of fun. Like, see that. And again, it's funny. We were just talking about Kes. I think for these next 3 episodes, I don't feel like we see her at all. Like she was so tied to Neil. Like wasn't a great Neelix plot line to this episode either. And we don't see Q again until at the end. He has a baby, which ends up, I think, being John D. Lancey's son in real life, or some such. But I know that the next time we see him in season 7, that's his real life son, so it can't be the same kid twice. So it must be 2 kids. But we don't see Q again until the end of the series when he returns with Q2, his who's Keegan, his real life son. So, but yeah, cool episode. All right, I know we're on a time crunch, so let's blast through these last 2. Jen, I'll give you episode 12.
Right, that is Macrocosm. Voyager answers help from a mining colony about a viral outbreak that manages to sneak onto Voyager through the transporter, leaving only Janeway and the Doctor to stop it. Or as I've called it, starring Catherine Janeway as Ellen Ripley.
Oh yeah, or as it's the Die Hard basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, more to your point, don't let the doctor do anything. This was a 100% preventable thing that the doctor was like, I really want to go down and do this thing and help people out or whatever. And and maybe I'm forgetting the
He's
setup.
the real Jar Jar Binks of the episode.
Oh God, big time. Yeah, because he goes down there and still he brings back these little flies that turn into these big pitcher plant things. And and then Janeway I gotta take off my jacket. This is when the jumpsuit suddenly becomes a jacket, which is an amazing transformation with the Voyager jumpsuit. It can become a jacket and then the shirt comes off too, and then she'd put my badge on and do.
Clothing technology of the future.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There are no zippers, so how could anything be one piece or two piece if there's no zippers? Everything separates. She could have just taken the sleeves off and gone great guns, don't you think? But this was cool. I love seeing them run around. I always like seeing weird corners of the ship. It's always amazing how much destruction the ship can continue to take. Like, we had to blow out the entire power grid to save this, or we had to eject the warp core, but it was a good thing we could go back and get it again. You know what I mean? So, unlike in Battlestar Galactica, where if you watch the whole show, at the end of it, it looks like a 78 Pinto, where it started out as a 2024 Cadillac. By the time Voyager rolls home, it just looks just fine. But yeah, I dug this. I don't know. Any other thoughts about the episode?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was got to see Janeway, kick alien ass, which was very fun.
Right. Our favorite rifle. Pew pew. Yeah, I always love to see when the rifle makes the breakout. So pretty cool. But yeah, it seems like a lot of stuff that could be avoided if the doctor would just, friggin' knock it off. So
he's like, I just got this mobile emitter. Let me use it.
Yeah, well, maybe it's not such a great idea, you big dope. All right, I'll take us home with Fair Trade, episode 13. Jesus Salvador Trevino is the director. He becomes a regular talent on Star Trek, if I'm not mistaken. The story is Ron Wilkerson and Jean Louise Matthias, not names that I recognize, so I don't know that they were regulars. But the teleplay is by Andre Bormanis, who is a regular to the show. From January of 1997, Voyager approaches the edge of Neelix's knowledge at a trading station going into the Necrid Expanse. So this is a Neelix in crisis episode. He's like, oh God, they're going to find out I don't know what I'm doing. Neelix, we've always known you don't know what you're doing. I don't really feel like, his whole juxtaposition in this episode around feeling like, oh, I'm not valuable anymore. What am I going to do? Just seems kind of weird and tacked on. And then he meets a shady ne'er-do-well buddy who he the two of them did a job together, and Neelix got away and this guy went to jail. And so Neelix is like, oh, I feel so conflicted or whatever. And it just, I don't know. I wasn't crazy about it. Neelix isn't one of my favorite characters anyway, even though I met Johnny Phillips on the cruise and he was awesome. Neelix was always very cringy to me in a lot of ways. I don't know. What do you guys think? Was this story at all redemptive of Neelix, even though he screwed things up and at the end Janeway let him off the hook? I mean, what do you guys think?
I kind of get where he's coming from, actually. So this kind of, I'm like, oh, that feeling of you feel like you have to be useful, otherwise people won't like you. You feel like you have to contribute something, or you feel like a drain. Neelix is coming to this from a very different perspective. He was a smuggler. He was a traitor. My Borg implants are falling off.
Oh no! You cured Borgism. They're falling off.
And he's used to being useful and helping people. And, the Starfleet way is like, you're valuable and worthwhile just because you're a person. You don't have to contribute anything for us to like you. And that's so hard for him to wrap his head around. So I can totally understand why he would have this moral dilemma, this conflict, and resort to what he felt like he had to resort to in order to continue to help the crew. Right. I get it.
That's valid.
And I don't think that she necessarily let him off the hook either, because there was still this, like, you still did this thing that was not good at the end of the episode. Mm-hmm. So, there's no through line because Voyager's got a big reset button at the end of every episode, but I still feel like that emotional thing of like, you still did a bad thing, but we're still going to keep you on because we like you. And that's the point of the episode is we like you. We want you here. You don't have to do anything for us to like you.
Yeah.
That can be a hard lesson to learn when you're someone who's used to being useful.
Right.
Right. Where every relationship is transactional.
Right.
Right. Yeah, we're right, because he was a junker. He was like, we just watched
Mhm.
Guardians of the Galaxy last night, and the Ravagers, like Yondu. Like, he's like Yondu, but not quite so
Mhm.
edgy. That's a very good point. I guess I didn't necessarily look at it that way. So he just
Yeah.
wasn't used to being in the company of friends and people who you care about. So, hey, you know what? I learned something today. That gave me a thank you very much. So,
Welcome.
Kay, any final thoughts
Yeah,
about
I
this
mean,
episode?
honestly, I think this is one of the episodes where, I mean, especially because this was one of the first ones where we saw him and, Kes part ways, and they kind of
Yeah.
took the abusive boyfriend angle off of him. And so you got to see him as a character outside of that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that, yeah, I agree more with Jen, where you got to see him struggling with learning that not everyone is wanting something from you just
Mhm.
because they want something from you. People can want you around just because, like you were saying, they enjoy your company or they value you as a person, and it's not down
Mhm.
to what you can do.
Right.
And you got to
Right.
see him struggle with, no, I know Voyager and I've been with this crew now for 2 years and there's no way that the captain could do this. And then, his friend is kind of, the devil on his shoulder being like, no, or, his conscience or his self-doubt being like, no, you're not valuable. You're not useful. Why would they want to keep you if you can't produce something for them?
Right.
So, and I think that, especially, Mama Janeway, I'm not angry, I'm more disappointed. Like that in and of itself is punishment enough.
Yeah. Mama's mad. Yeah. Mama's mad at me. Yeah. I get, you know what? You guys turned me around about this one. I actually have a little deeper appreciation after having this conversation. Look at that. Good stuff. All right. We got to take this one home. Let's have a favorite and a least favorite of these groupings. Jen, go for it.
Favorite's going to be Future's End. I think it was still a lot of fun, kind of what we said. I always like the episodes where they come back to the present, so to speak.
The present, dating present, right?
Yeah. And the least favorite's going to be Warlord. It's just, there wasn't anything to it. It was kind of
Right.
it was a nothing sandwich. So
Yes, big time. It's easy for me because I have the exact same input.
Mhm.
Future's End is one of those ones that I go back to because it's fun and and it has a great message about scumbag capitalism. And then Warlord is just like, find a way to make me care. Oh, you didn't find a way to make me care? We're all set. Let's move on. Okay.
I'm going to say that probably my favorite would be the Q and the Gray, and then my least favorite was Macrocosm.
Oh boy, different perspective. I like that. Yeah. So, well, cool. Well, we are concluded. Jen, thank you so much. Loved having you on. Let's do
Thanks
this
for having me.
with some serious frequency. I know this is your
Yeah.
third or fourth time on the show, and you're going to be back next week as well for the
Yep.
as yet kept under wraps super secret conclusion of what episode 100 is going to be. Where do people find you out there on the interwebs?
I am at Jen Watson Art in most places. I've got a link tree. So it's linktree/Jen Watson Art. You can find me there. That's got links to my Instagram, my Etsy shop, anything else. I got some cool stuff on Etsy. I'll be putting more Star Trek products in there soon. So you can find that stuff
Sweet.
there. Yeah, that's that. Fun has now concluded.
Fun has now concluded. Kay, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter at the QT Geek, and then at Counter Social at KQuinn.
Nice. And as always, you can find me over on Twitter at the C3. Go ahead and spell it out. My wife, April, and I do run the USS Grand Petoskey. That is one of the biggest chapters of the International Star Trek Fan Club in the world, based right here in West Michigan. If you're a Trekker, want to learn more about talking to other Trekkers, we've got a great Discord that is members only. So drop us a line from our website of that name, or you can find us on socials too, and we can get you going. With that, friends, I'm going to bid you an adieu. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring and to keep on trekking.
And wherever you go boldly.
Be what you love and love who you are.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.